So you've read 1,000 books, you've done a couple of dozen online programs, you've asked a few mentors about how to actually get focused, be motivated, be extremely consistent, operate with low emotional variance, and grow your business. But no matter how much information you gather, you still don't get results. So what's going on here? What's going on here is you probably lack a systematic understanding of all the relevant parts of the system of you and the system of your business. In today's video, I'm going to disclose the framework we've built in the past 5 years that has already helped hundreds of people around the world master their personal performance and scale their businesses and accelerate their careers exponentially. Welcome back. Hi everyone, Leon Castillo here, CEO and founder of Selfmastered, which is a company that specializes in peak cognitive performance for entrepreneurs and business leaders. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing because we release a few videos every week to help you achieve and sustain peak performance in your professional life. Our clients call us their secret weapon. So today I want to disclose the full framework that we have built and used for the past 5 years to help entrepreneurs accelerate their businesses, right? And this comes as a result of a lot of trial, error, reading, trying, iterating on the feedback, really nailing down a process. This is a sedimentation of several years, right? So this is not something we just invented, which makes it actually unique and actually useful, right? So 100% of people that go through our program have incredible results, depending on what they're chasing. So by the end of this video, you're going to have a clear understanding of what are all the relevant areas that you should look into if you're willing to become a top performer and accelerate your career or grow your business. So the first thing is, Aristotle said that the number one factor guiding human behavior was goal setting. The type of goals you set is what is going to drive your performance, right? So we need to start by checking what direction are you heading towards, right? So the first thing is direction. The goal here is to go from an aimless drifting to be laser focused and on a mission, right? The problem is that most people don't have a clear roadmap. They don't know where they're going. They never plan for more than a week ahead, and they operate from a lack of meaningful direction in life, right? So nothing really matters in the long run because they're focused on the moment. The problem with that is that, well, if you don't plan your life, somebody will plan it for you. So the best way of actually unlocking the possibility of peak performance is setting a 10-year goal and then hypothesizing via 90-day stretch goals, right? 90-day roadmaps that get you closer to that 10-year goal. And not only by harnessing the power of goals, but also creating the necessary systems and processes to make sure that you get there. But that's step number one. What's step number two? Well, step number two has to do with a systematic understanding of who you are. Right? It's about auditing the system of you. System of you. Once you know where you're going, now you need to think about who are you? What are you good at? What are you trying to accomplish? What are the bottlenecks and the levers and the trade-offs within the system of you? Without knowing exactly who you are and what you're good at and what you need to learn or do in order to reach the next level, it's impossible. Without a systematic understanding of who you are, it just doesn't make sense. You can set as many goals as you want, but you will never achieve them. The goal here is to optimize who you are through a laser-sharp analysis of your unique characteristics. And we provide tools and frameworks for people to do just this, right? So step one, new direction. Step two, new understanding of who you are. Now, step three, you may be asking, now we're ready. No, we're not ready, because once you set a new direction and you audit what's not working, and of course you solve what's not working, you double down on what's working, then you need to learn how to execute on those plans. Because as you probably know, if you're in the entrepreneurs or startup world, ideas are plenty, but execution is scarce. Nothing beats a well-focused, highly achieving team executing on just one thing, right? So you need to execute all your plans based on your understanding of who you are, right? And the goal here is to go from ineffective and wasteful, which is how most people operate, to effective and dangerous, right? From working in a state of stress, emotional turmoil, lack of focus, to really working with the highest focus available on the highest leverage task, and do all the planning, the prioritization, the scheduling, and the execution protocols needed to make sure that you execute on that vision. But this is only step number 3. Step number 4 is optimize with data. Optimize with data, because most trainings regarding peak performance never use data, right? And how you do this? Well, the problem is that in the self-development world and the peak performance world, there's just too much placebo-fueled progress, as we call it. There's too much things that are purely mental, right? So you feel you're progressing and therefore you assume you're progressing. And sometimes the opposite is true. You think you're progressing, but you're actually regressing. And how do you know you're actually going in the way you want to go? How do you know you're progressing? Well, by using data. As simple as that. You need to build your own dashboard or use our dashboards to make sure that you're heading in the right direction and gathering the necessary data points and KPIs on your personal and your professional performance to make sure that you are actually getting faster and closer to where you want to go. Now, those data can be qualitative and quantitative in nature. So it can be numbers, or it can be just value statements. It can be anything that actually helps you have a clear sense of progress. And that's what the real pros do. They don't feel good or they don't feel progress. They track it. They know where that progress comes from, right? So that's step number 4. And these 4 already constitute a huge leg up, right? If you set a meaningful direction and you self and a hypothesis, you audit a system of you execute in a whole different way, and you optimize through data, well, you're ahead of the game, right? And now is when we optimize 4 dimensions of who you are, of the system of you, right? First is spiritual optimization. So, and a spiritual optimization is basically related to motivation and identity. The idea here is that you can never surpass the limits of your mental model. So you need to actualize your identity with the new level of performance that you're putting in the marketplace, and do so that you are constantly operating with what scientists call intrinsic motivation, intrinsic that comes from within, that nobody needs to actually convince you to do X or set a business or do whatever. You know that it is the best thing you can do for yourself because you have shaped your identity based on that belief, right? So this is about belief system optimization. At some point, no matter how well you're executing a new direction and how awesome is the data you collect and how well you're able to refine, at some point you're going to hit a wall, and that wall is yourself. Why? You don't believe enough on what you're trying to do. You don't believe you're capable of doing it. So you hold yourself back. And spiritual optimization is probably key to make sure that you're always evolving, always becoming better. Now, that's step number 5. Step number 6 is mental performance. Mental performance, and this, my friends, has become a must in the 21st century, because the new digital landscape is driving ourselves nuts. This has always been an evolutionary mismatch between who you are and who we think we are, right? Between the environment in which we live in and the actual hardware we have, right? So our minds. And this is a common theme in evolutionary psychology. So where body is evolutionary standpoint is in the past, right? We're perfectly adapted to live 200,000 years ago. So now there are too many distractions. It is way too easy to waste your day if you're not careful. And here the goal is from going from living in the shallows, meaning very low level work, not able to focus, to really only doing deep work, right? And this is when you get rid of all that Pomodoro bullshit and you really harness the power of your ultradian rhythms. Remember that half of the knowledge workers in the world check email every 6 minutes according to rescue time. And about 25% of the average workday is wasted. No, sorry, is 75% is not productive. So there's a lot of things going on here. And the goal of mental performance is to optimize for focus and flow, which is something more complex and non-ordinary state of consciousness that we'll cover in another video. Step number 7, emotional. So emotional performance. Emotions are the cornerstone of business. This is what makes or breaks an entrepreneur. The ability of being focused and calm in the middle of the entrepreneurial storms. The problem is that most trainings on this are post-conflict, right? So they teach entrepreneurs how to deal with negative emotions that they have already been suffering. We believe there's more leverage in prevention, in teaching people how to control their emotional state, how to lower their emotional variance, how to interpret everything that comes to them in a positive light, so that we make each belief positively actionable. Right? So from post-conflict emotional strategies to actually preventive emotional protocols that strengthen your mind and prevent you from falling into bad feedback loop, spirals, right? The best way of protecting your cognitive power from being hijacked by negative emotions is, well, mastering emotional performance. And the goal here is control. And finally, physical performance, right? And in physical performance, we optimize for energy. So normally there's a fitness-centric approach to physical performance, right? So you're trying to become more stronger or faster or able to sustain more training or whatever, right? But we found that there's a lack of a framework that is focused on performance, and that's what we've built throughout the years, right? The goal here is to maximize energy, so you never have a problem with your energy, right? So we optimize everything. Optimize how you do your diet, your sleep, your meditation, your breath work, everything that is involved in keeping your mind sharp and your body full of energy, right? So you see, if you do this, if you first set a meaningful direction to audit who you are and solve your problems and double down on what works for you, you can then execute in a whole new level. Then you can use data in order to optimize yourself. You can then optimize your spirituality, meaning you are actually shaping your identity to accommodate for the new challenges that are coming your way. Then mental performance, operating with a much higher level of focus, up to 8 hours in flow in most extreme cases that we're trained. Full emotional control, so you're able to harness the power of low emotional variance. And finally, physical performance, how to operate at peak energy. If you do all these 8, and that's what we help people do in 12 weeks, there's no goal that will not be able to be harnessed by you. This is our framework. This is what we call a self-master evolution. And I really hope this was useful. Next time you try to improve yourself, ask what dimension of the self are you trying to improve and how does it relate with the others, right? Only by being systematic and being actually honest with yourself, you can get to that next level, right? Hopefully this was useful. Please let me know in the comments if it was. And of course, if you want to become part of the Self-Master Evolution program, along with all the hundreds of high performers around the world, sign up. for a free one-on-one consulting call with me and see if it makes sense that we help you accelerate your career and grow your business. Cheers.